Hi, Shannon. Oh, actually, sorry. Flo.
Yes.
I know Flo. We've known each other for a couple of years.
Uh-huh.
And I know I probably sent an email. So I've known Flo for a couple of years. When I started Delivery Diary, she's like, oh, I love this idea of family making. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're such a, like, it was just organic that she's just helped put the podcast together with me.
Yeah.
And she's so knowledgeable on family creation and the science. We love the science, both Flo and I. And then Shannon, I think I mentioned, I know from the gym, especially we did the mommy classes together when our girls were babies together in the car seats trying to work out.
I know. Oh my gosh.
On some level, it was easier then, right?
It was.
Yeah. I only brought her in a couple times because I had to get up in the middle of working out and feed her that one time when she was in the seat. And then after that, she wanted to lay down on the floor, but then she kept rolling into like the equipment. So
yeah, no, that's not safe. That's safe.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure you guys just knew like how we know each other. Well, let's just go from there. So thank you, Shannon, for being here.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here and share my story.
Great. Yeah, let's get into your story because your story, every story is unique. Every delivery is unique, and that's why I'm excited. And I know your child, Emerson. So it's always extra special when we know the babies, the kids involved.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we could start from I didn't know, Flo, if you had any specific
like how did you how did the whole thing start? I'm always interested to know people's journeys, especially when they're as involved as yours has been. Your journey to motherhood has been pretty involved.
I always knew I wanted to be a mom, even like youngest age ever. I used to work with kids in my teens and my early 20s. And I was kind of known as the child whisperer because I was so good with kids, and random kids would come up to me. At the time, I used to help out at a Sunday school, and these kids would come up to me that my mom didn't know. And they're like, who is this kid? And they're like, Shannon. And I'm like, oh, I work with them in the Sunday school. But kids always gravitated towards me. But I always knew
you mean like the kids, like if you saw them at a grocery store, they would come up to you or something?
Yeah, or anywhere. Like,
oh, that's awesome.
This playground. Okay.
But I always knew I wanted to be a mom. And so it was always a thought that I wanted a family. At the time, I wanted 3 kids. And so I always, even had the number that I wanted. My mom never had any issues getting pregnant. So she kind of made it seem like, oh, well, you shouldn't have any issues. But little did I know it would take about a decade to get pregnant. So anyway, fast forward, by the time I was, ready to have kids, I found out that, I was having trouble getting pregnant. It just wasn't happening. So, and interestingly, it's always good to get a second opinion because I saw 2 different doctors. The first fertility doctor I ever went to basically said there was nothing he could find wrong with me at all. And he was so unhelpful.
Yeah.
With him, I only did IUI. That's, you guys know the difference, the IUI versus IVF. I did 5 IUI with him and then went to a new doctor because he seemed clueless.
Well, so for our listeners, the next sorry to interrupt, but just for our listeners, because this is also for our listeners that are listening for the first time to learn about IUI and IVF and the difference. If you or Flo would want to explain the difference or share the difference between the two.
Let me see if I know what this is.
I'm putting you on the spot, Flo, because we had other guests that had it.
No. Intrauterine
insemination.
So it's the colloquial is turkey baster, right?
Turkey baster. They put it in as close as possible into the uterus, so it's less invasive. So, but it's, of course, it's not going to work as well, and it clearly didn't at that time. Then when I went to the new doctor, she had all these ideas of what could be wrong based on some testing that I did with the other doctor, which he didn't pick up on. So once she got my testing, she's like, oh, it could be this, and that. And really, she was really focusing in on endometriosis. And she
Wow.
thought that might be what's happening. But to know if you actually have endometriosis, you actually have to have laparoscopic surgery because it's microscopic and you can't see it. With the new doctor, I had done 2 more IUI just to see, and then that wasn't working. So then decided to do IVF. I didn't want to just jump into doing a surgery, not knowing if I had endometriosis. I just kind of wanted to just jump in and try the IVF because I wanted children and I wanted them now, and I didn't want to wait for a surgery. So I did 2 IVFs at that time, which were both very, very painful. And the second IVF I did with her, I actually ended up in the hospital with peritonitis.
Oh no.
Which was crazy. So what they think happened is that when they did the egg retrieval, that when they did the procedure, it nicked one of the endometriosis.
Wow.
And then that caused fluid into my abdomen. And it was super scary and like the most painful thing I'd ever experienced in my life, the peritonitis.
So you did clearly diagnosed with endometriosis. Is it? Go ahead.
Yeah, and I hadn't even officially been diagnosed with that yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
But at this time was another marker of like why maybe it was endometriosis. Because later then I did have the surgery for endometriosis, but the peritonitis, they think, I mean, that was like a big red flag. Okay, maybe that's what's going on. But that was scary. I had to have a blood transfusion and it was scary. And I was in the hospital for a few days.
So prior to this, and I'm just going to be super nosy, but with the endometriosis, had you had trouble with like with your period, with like your cycle and everything? Did you have a lot of pain?
So the interesting thing is I never had like just standard, like regular pain throughout the day. It was only during my period. I had extremely painful cramps. So periods were very painful. But there was nothing else. It was just the infertility. So it wasn't like I would have known. I thought everyone had super painful cramping during periods. I thought that was a normal thing.
Yeah.
I always did since I was a teen.
And just for our listeners and watchers, it is not totally normal to be doubled over in pain during menstruation. Like there's natural, there's like normal, like, okay, this is a little discomfort, but actual pain like you suffered, Shannon, is not normal.
I thought
a lot of people do.
Experience. Yeah, I had pain. I had uncomfortable periods when I was in middle school when I had it, like going to the office and being picked up from my mom. But then it got better over time, but I mean, I still have, so I think that's actually interesting to bring up for our listeners and viewers to know that difference, especially when you're trying to get pregnant. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that.
I thought it was just normal.
Yeah.
I mean,
of course, because that's your experience. I mean, how are you going to compare? Yeah.
Right. So I just thought that's how everyone experienced it. But apparently not.
Well, we'll go back to you're recovering on that.
Yeah.
But like the IVF, but then before your surgery, you already had the IVF, which is, in vitro fertilization.
Yeah. So I had the 2 IVFs, then the peritonitis. Then I ended up doing the surgery because my doctor was like, we're not going to do any more IVF until you have the surgery because it's dangerous. Got it. And because that could happen again. So, I mean, I did have the surgery and it was stage 4 endometriosis that happened.
Oh my gosh.
And apparently it was like everywhere. Yeah. Which is crazy because I didn't have constant pain. It was just during my periods. And then, but stage 4, I was just kind of surprised by that. So they took it all out. But of course, endometriosis is something that can grow back. It doesn't cure it, taking it out. So you still have it, it still grows back, but it was certainly a lot better because then in 2018, we spent the whole year just doing IVFs to try to collect embryos. And the pain level from post-surgery to the ones that I did prior to surgery, it was huge difference. It was extremely painful the first 2 IVFs I did. And then post clearing out the endometriosis, my egg retrievals were basically pain-free, which is crazy to go from excruciating pain to like pain-free. just getting rid of the endometriosis. Of course, it can go back, and I have noticed like some has come back. You can kind of feel in a way, but the whole year I did 4 rounds of IVF that year, and all of them I came out the other end just pain-free. Like I went home and I didn't have to take any pain medication, which was so surprising after what I had experienced before. That
is amazing.
But that whole year we did just trying to collect embryos. It was like just because I was getting older, I'm late 30s by that point, and I wanted more than one child, so I have to collect embryos. And those maybe not knowing that you get out a certain amount of eggs, but by the time you actually get a normal embryo, there's a huge drop off. So you might get out 8 eggs and then end up with 1 that's actually normal.
Right.
So that's why you end up having to do all these rounds of IVF. So the first round we did February 2018, we got 1 that was normal. And then June of that year, we got 1. August that year, we got 0, which was...
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I did all of that because IVF is all the, you're giving yourself injections, and then you're actually put under, you're asleep during the egg retrieval procedure. And then November of that year, we had 1 normal embryo. So we ended up having 3 altogether out of the 4 rounds. And I was very anxious to do a transfer because I was getting older and I want more than 1 child. So I'm like, we have to do a transfer as soon as possible. Now I felt more comfortable having 3 in our reserve. They were biopsied and frozen and they're normal. And then my doctor wanted me to do the endometrial function test, which is a test that is conducted by Yale University. So they biopsy your uterus twice during your cycle, and then they send it and do all the testing. So I had to wait. It seemed like it took forever to find out the results on that. But finally we got them, and it turned out that I had the endometriosis. It just came up inflammatory cells, which is the endometriosis. And then it came up that I was missing a protein called MAG. No, I still don't know what that exactly is, but in the report it said the protein is necessary for pregnancy. And if you're lacking this protein, then you either are likely to not get pregnant at all, which was my case, or likely to have a miscarriage.
Got it.
So that was the news because I really wanted to do our transfer. So I just felt like speed bump after speed bump. It just kept happening. And at this point I was just like so distressed about it. And my doctor basically said the only option was surrogacy. So we had to get a surrogate. And I was kind of devastated because I wanted to carry my own baby. I never even had thought about surrogacy ever before because I never thought that I would, that would ever happen to me. So then that process is a whole nother ordeal.
It's like weird dating, right?
Well, let's time out because there's so much information that is good, and I just want to make sure that. Well, it's a lot though to take in, even hearing it. Because
it is a lot, and I had never heard of. Yeah, and I had never heard of this protein, so I'm going to go do some research on it because that's a new one for me.
Little research, but I couldn't really find much about it. MAG protein. I don't know.
So. Was it the endometriosis or the protein, or was it a mixture of a lot of things that you couldn't conceive or couldn't carry? Like what were?
I think that the big culprit was the missing protein. I think the missing protein was the biggest thing because she said that with the endometriosis, there were things that they could do to work around that. They could still transfer on me, but because there was this whole other thing. Then that's really
and honestly probably likely why you didn't get pregnant before when you were trying.
Yeah, right? I've never ever gotten pregnant ever out of all those times. So it's not, and no miscarriage or anything. It's just I never got pregnant.
Right.
So
and can you rewind if I missed it? They've discovered the protein because they were doing the testing on you, or did they test for that protein?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they test, it's the endometrial function test.
Yeah.
And that's the one they sent to Yale. So this is the test they did when, right before I wanted to do a transfer, but they wanted to just make sure we don't want to waste an embryo.
Right.
We want to do this testing to make sure that you have, we're not going to lose an embryo because we transfer it to your uterus.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's like what it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it sounded like they were testing to make sure the implantation would work.
Yeah.
Right. So endometrial function, right? Like that's the lining of the uterus and that gets shed every month if you don't get pregnant. So if you're missing a protein that sort of activates the once the, with the implantation that sort of activates, which it sounds like maybe that this is what that is, then you can't, like you can't get pregnant because there's no way for the body to be like, oh, hey, it's time to implant and nestle and like do all those things. God, that's crazy.
Yeah. But it's just crazy that all these little things and it took so long to the point of actually knowing about.
That's where I'm at right now. It's like, that's where the pause and time out. Like it took that long because I wonder if there's not a place in time, but like people can find out earlier or knowing.
I hope so.
Testing.
I mean, I would have loved to know that 10 years earlier.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, there's always but this is where your story and other people's stories help and empower other women and families that are trying to conceive. And
that's and for people to ask questions, some doctors don't know everything. Mm-hmm. And if you come in clueless and you're expecting them to be the expert and they really, depending on what doctor you go to, they might not be.
Right.
It's always good to have more information going in. At the time, I didn't really have that information. Plus, I didn't know anyone else going through it at the time. Now I know a lot of people going through it, but before when I went through it, I didn't have anyone to talk to about it because no one else was going through it. So it was kind of like my own discovery.
Yeah, so the discovery, so you had to self-discover it. Was frustrating.
Yeah, and it's crazy that there could be different. I mean, I was so surprised at finding the protein issue because I didn't even I didn't know that was a thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like in your whole journey, no medical professional had mentioned, hey, maybe this thing is wrong.
Right? And even the doctor wasn't even quite sure. She hadn't really had much experience with that either. So she was kind of clueless too when that report came back. Like, what is this? One of a few cases.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and I don't know what causes it either. So
to this day,
like whether it's environmental or genetic or like maybe it came from your dad instead of your mom, because we always talk about on the show, like you want to know what your birth experience is gonna be like talk to your mom, right? Or talk to your female relatives.
My mom had me when my mom was just about to turn 39 when she had me, so she was 38, like turning 39 the next week. So she also was an older mom, but no problems at all.
Yeah.
And so that's why you think. Yeah. But then I didn't talk to my mom about pregnancy until I was pregnant. So it's not like I'm in my 20s or in my early 30s talking to my mom about how was your pregnancy. It just never dawned on me. So I never knew.
I don't think about it.
Yeah. Before we get to the surrogacy experience, then how just being present to like, what were the emotions and feelings and how did you get through it? How did you guys get through it? Like just coming to terms? It was
very hard. I don't think, I don't think, I think it was just very hard physically, emotionally, just like everything was just rough. I think I just kind of dealt with it. Just kind of like skimmed through. I mean, at the time, I guess I did have somebody like a therapist to talk to about it.
Good. I was just about to ask, did you hire, like, did you have therapy? Like, cause it's hard. And
I did. So. I do remember now that I was talking to somebody cause it was just hard and then doing all the IVF, I had to do all the acupuncture too and all the herbs. It's just like so much stuff and so many appointments after appointment, and then just the whole, I think, especially when I had to deal with realizing that I had to have a surrogate, that was really hard on me. So I think I was really talking to someone then too, because just to try to get through
There's a lot of mourning, right? Like literally, like grief from like this is the expectation that I have. This is the thing that I want, and I'm not going to get those things. So now but I'm still want a baby.
Yeah.
And we have these 3 embryos. So now what do we do? Right. And so God, just the amount of pain and grief. It's tough.
And
yeah.
And it's interesting. They even said, well, maybe you're not ready emotionally to start looking at the surrogacy yet. But I was like, no, I'm ready.
That
now.
was
like yesterday.
That was someone someone actually suggested that. I was gonna say the time. Yeah, I was gonna say when you said you got through it. Yeah, because I was gonna say when you said you got through it, I was like, yeah, because you got to now prepare for the next step. That's what I'm thinking. Like, were you saying we just
and like as soon as I found out we had to have a surrogate, I was like, okay, what do we have to do now?
Yeah.
Even though I was emotionally distraught, I'm like, we have to move on and we have to continue moving forward. I'm not getting any younger again.
Yeah, but
I'm not waiting just to end my things for the next several months before I can start again. But no, because I think whatever therapist I was talking to was like, maybe you should take some time. No,
oh my gosh,
I've already taken lots of time.
No, I know.
There's no time
and instinctually, I think it also just started to kick in. It sounds like it starts to kick in for you instinctually. Like, no, I'm preparing for motherhood. I'm preparing for my baby. What's the next step? Like survival mode, instincts. That's how it comes across. I can only imagine the feeling. Like, this is what we're doing now. Like. Yeah.
I'm like,
what am I going to emotionally wait for?
I wasn't fully ready to deal with that new reality yet, but I'm like, this is what's happening. This is okay. We're going full force ahead and we're going to get this done.
Yes.
So
I hear you, Mama.
So yeah, we had to.
Yeah. I can see you now.
Yeah. There's no time.
It's like, I've been ready. I've been ready.
Right. Okay. Like you're talking, it's a decade. Like, come on now.
Okay. So now we're in the surrogacy phase, the planning, if you will, the stage.
Okay. My doctor provided me a list of surrogate agencies. So we worked with an agency for surrogacy and she gave us her top 3. So we interviewed with them and we picked the one we were most comfortable with. One agency, they rubbed us the wrong way because they basically said, if you choose to be VIP and pay more money, you can be matched with a surrogate tomorrow.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I wonder if this is just Los Angeles. I mean, what is going on here?
It's like millionaire matchmaker. Like what? That seems a little extreme. Okay.
Of course, I was tempted because I'm like, how long do we have to wait for a surrogate?
I know.
We could have one tomorrow.
Yeah.
But do we want to pay VIP prices on top of the already expensive price?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It rubbed us the wrong way. So we said no to that agency. It just didn't feel good. So we went with another one that seemed very caring and kind, and they explained everything in such detail. They had this orientation that was like 6 hours long. Everything you're going to be experiencing and all the stuff you're going to be dealing with, like the legal and so much involved.
Yeah.
But the agency handles it all. So,
and I'm gonna ask another question. It's American surrogate, somebody like locally to Southern California, I'm assuming, maybe.
Yeah. So when we got matched with surrogates, I think I always thought like you pick from like a list of 20 surrogates, and that's not how it works. You have to wait. We waited about 4 months, and then we were matched with, I think, 3 people. 2 of them were in California, but in more remote areas of California where maybe the hospitals aren't as good. You can drive there, but it's not near a big city. And then the surrogate that we chose, and they also choose you too at the two-way street, but she lives in Las Vegas. And so
that's not bad.
That's an easy flight in and out. She's near, in the big city, better hospital options. So we felt comfortable with the Vegas thing. And there were different signs for us on choosing our surrogate that came up. She lives in Vegas. My husband, Vince, he grew up in Vegas and I think partially through middle school and then all of high school.
Oh,
and his
wow.
mom lives in Vegas.
Okay.
There you
So
go.
there's a connection. That's
Yeah.
cool.
And also her name's Valerie, and that's my mom's name.
Aw,
my
so like
gosh,
sort of
come
like
on.
the universe saying,
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt like
yeah,
I felt like the universe was saying, this is your
this is your person.
this is your
Yes.
person. We really didn't get matched and then agree on the match until August of 2019. And then still it's a long time until you do a transfer with surrogate, because then you have to get all this stuff cleared medically they have to fly out. She flew out to see my fertility doctor. She's apparently she's the most strict fertility doctor out of all of them with surrogates, which is good.
Yeah.
But they have to have pristine everything. And also they have to have had a child before. So she has a son. She would fly out for testing, and then it just took a long time. So there's all the testing, and then the legal stuff took a long time too. There's just so much paperwork. And then we did our first transfer with her in December of 2019. And on 2 days before Christmas, we found out it did not work. So again, I think that was like, out of everything I had already done this whole journey, like that day was like the worst of them all, because and by the way, I started feeling better about I felt better about the surrogacy process and having to do it once we met our surrogate, and we
sure. Yeah.
He was wonderful.
That's
so
great
once
to
we
hear.
knew who she was and we got to know her, like the dread and the sadness about having to have a surrogate lifted. And I didn't feel that way anymore once we knew who it was, because she was amazing.
Wow.
But the first time, even with a normal embryo, even with a pristine uterus, it still didn't work. So I was at rock bottom, like just horrible at that point, because I'm like, what else? I've done everything. Like, how is it still not working? And I just couldn't believe it. I was just in shock that it didn't work. So I was like really, really down at that time. And it was right before Christmas, which was like the worst time.
Oh, so hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we're doing it again. We have 3 embryos. That was the first one we used up, which was also devastating because it was so hard to get the embryos. And it also meant that I wasn't going to have 3. I mean, literally. Depending, like, then I have 2 left. I want 2 kids. And I only have 2 embryos left. So the chances of, being able to.
It's tough.
It's scarier.
Yeah.
So that was hard. Because I had an older brother. So I always envisioned having an older boy and a younger girl. So I was like, if I didn't have 3, I wanted 2, and I have like an older brother and a little girl. So we did have 1 male embryo and 2 female embryos. So the male,
so you knew. Oh, wow. Okay.
And you know what it is. So we put the male in first, mostly because I wanted, to, like, my brother and myself. Brother, I was like, that would be so cute. So I wanted to try that, but it didn't work. So also it was the loss of having my own son too.
Sure.
Because that was the only male embryo that we had. So that was also just like, I will never have my own son. So that was kind of like a sad point too, because I always thought I was going to have the older brother. So fast forward to February 2020.
Sorry, I'm just getting. And by the way, I've never heard that in our stories. In our, I told you we get emotional on the podcast. It's just getting.
It's hard.
We never heard this part of a surrogacy story, or knowing that
IVF
that's the facts.
Yeah.
Like, that's the facts. This is the reality of like
because it was the loss of the embryo, but it was also the loss of a potential son.
Yes,
too.
exactly.
The sex of
got it
of the embryo. So that was devastating. I was actually I don't think I'd ever been depressed in my life until I don't think I'd ever been depressed before until this time. Like seriously, like it legit happening.
Yeah.
So I think I was depressed that day through up until we did it again. And that was early February. So like, I just remember like all of January was just like so sad.
Yeah.
And like just down, like, cause I thought it was like never happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was hard. I won't go into it too much. So I don't want to get up too sad.
No, I know.
Okay.
But I think
It's
it's
okay.
also
Right.
knowing the end result of it all. So,
Yeah.
but there's
There's
just
the thing that came along.
Mhm.
We did a second transfer
Uh-huh.
of our embryo in a female embryo in February 2020. And it's funny because you also know the date that they were conceived, so that they were created. So
Yeah.
Emerson's embryo. So it was successful the second time, and it was my daughter Emerson. So Emerson's embryo was created in February of 2018, and she was transferred in February of 2020. And so this time it was successful. I was so anxious waiting to see if we had a positive pregnancy test, but it was weird because I thought I would be like overjoyed and so excited when we got the news, but I was so worried that it wasn't real. And
Yeah.
Understandable after everything you've been through, right? Like totally understandable.
It's a roller coaster. Sounds like a roller coaster.
It was just so surreal. I'm like, how could it possibly be happening? And it was interesting because my mom, I noticed, had the same sort of reaction. I expected her to be like overjoyed and like crazy excited, but she like kind of like had the same sort of excitement, but not over the top.
Cautious optimism, I think, is what they call that.
Like you're holding your breath.
We were so afraid of. Yeah. Like, is it really happening? And even when it went to the 3-month safe mark, I was still worried.
Which is
kind of just
common.
like, yeah.
But just making sure the whole overall 3 months goes through, and after that,
right? But like like having it is, and it's like having a miscarriage. I mean, you had this giant journey before this moment, but even with women who have had miscarriages or other types of maternal loss, right? You do. Like, I know that happened to me when I was pregnant with Audrey, but it is that like you're like, okay, I'm just gonna. This is exciting, but I'm gonna hold on until something else happens to make sure that it is. Yeah. No, I get that.
I didn't allow myself to get excited, or too excited.
Well,
which was also sad because I wanted to be fully celebrating, but I didn't feel like I could quite yet. Obviously I got more excited as we got closer because I know, and then I was like, it's happening. It really is happening. But that was also so surreal that I couldn't believe that it was happening.
Sure.
Where were you when you heard the news that the embryo took? Right. And where were you when you heard the news when the embryo took?
Where was I? Oh my gosh, it's crazy that I don't even remember where I was.
That's fine. Yeah.
I don't think I remember where I was. I think it was probably a phone call from the dreaded phone call from the fertility clinic.
Okay, so that's one of those memory, those things as a mom. You're like, okay, memory out because you don't need to remember. Like they have this saying, like there's parts.
There were so many times that I was waiting for a call from the fertility clinic, going through all the IVFs. Like, do I have good news or do I have bad news? They did a blood test, and then they got the results, and then they would call me with the results. So I didn't talk to surrogate yet. It would be through the clinic first, and then we would be excited together.
Yeah.
But the clinic would call first.
Yeah.
I must have been home when I got the call.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, this is before the pandemic, so it soon after. I think it was March. Was March? Because it was
March of 2020. Yeah.
Like we did.
Yes, March 20th.
Yeah. So, and then the pandemic happened, and we're like, what is happening? I was able to go out to Vegas kind of right as things were happening. I think I came out there maybe around the early times because there were a couple people wearing a mask on the plane, but nothing was locked down yet.
Not locked down yet.
So like a week later, everything locked down.
Oh my gosh, a week later. Wow, look at the timing.
That. So,
because you went to Vegas, obviously, to meet Valerie.
Yeah, to go to an appointment with her. Yeah, to meet up with Valerie. But then once the pandemic hit, it was so hard because there were the doctor's offices would have all these they would keep changing. They would, we could come in to the appointment. Oh, now we can't come in. So there was another trip we had planned later on, and I forget what month that was, but we were planning to come to Vegas that weekend to go to an ultrasound appointment. And the day before we were driving there, the clinic said, I can't come in. It can only be the actual physical patient. And so that was devastating too.
Yes.
There for my appointment.
Very devastating.
I'm like, my baby.
Yeah. So I'm putting it two and two together. So I was pregnant during the pandemic, and surrogacy was pregnant, but you still couldn't even go and be present with your surrogate, with your baby, because of the pandemic. So there's.
Yeah.
That's so hard.
Yeah, that was hard too, because I expected, of course, going into it, I expected to be at all the appointments. I was planning, because it's an easy flight, to be there for all of them. So we did a lot of FaceTime. We were able to FaceTime the appointments. So actually that time we were actually supposed to drive to Vegas or fly. Did we fly or drive? I forget now. But we got to Vegas that time, and we met her for lunch after her appointment. We just hung out with her and could talk to her about it. But we FaceTimed with her while she was in the clinic, and then she came and met us for lunch.
Okay.
While we were there. So actually it was you're annoyed with the clinic, and I know they're doing their thing, but you think they'd make an exception for surrogacy.
Yes. Yeah, you would think. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that darn pandemic. Were you at a stage?
So that made it a little bit.
Go ahead. That made it a little bit what?
Where we went?
That you said that made it a little bit more
more tricky on figuring out which hospital we were going to be delivering at. Because we hadn't picked one till really late because they all had these different rules. We went with one that was more lenient with letting others into the hospital with our situation. Like some hospitals that were better wouldn't allow us to come in for the birth. So we decided, we're like, okay, forget those hospitals. We're just going to focus on, we'll go to the hospital that is more lenient. And because I'm like, I have to be there for the birth of my baby. There's no way that I'm not going to be in there.
Yeah.
Felt like things kept changing throughout the pandemic. Things would be lifted a little bit, but then they would tighten up a little bit. Like it just, every week would be different.
Okay.
And so they would say different things. So
this darn pandemic. Okay. We're going to put that aside for a second. I'm going to just go back to my notes too, because I want to make sure I don't miss it. I know I'm so over this pandemic. But which is actually a big factor, obviously, in your journey, of course. But now were you at a space where did you have a birth plan with your surrogate? This is the nesting part. At least you could be present to that joyful experience. How was that?
Yeah, so you do put together a birthing plan. So on the day of the birth, it's not confusing on things like who's holding the baby first and just all the details of that. Or do they breastfeed? Do they not breastfeed? Do you want them to pump? Do you not want them to pump? All these different things. I obviously wanted to hold my baby first. I mean, I missed out on so many other things. I'm like, I want to be able to hold my baby first. So that was big for me. But of course, she obviously is going to hold her too. And we did in the same room, and it was a very sweet moment. But you worry about these things, but they end up being much just smooth, and it doesn't have to be so tight to the plan, when you're actually going through it. But you worry about those things and you put them on paper. It all worked out just fine, and it wasn't too much on the birthing plan. It was just kind of we want a room in the hospital close to our surrogate. We want the baby in our room, that sort of thing. And that was also the thing about picking a hospital that would allow us to do that when I'm not the one giving birth.
And so obviously they were accommodating to that.
then it just made it worse because of allowing people in the hospital, you know. So that just added extra stress, I would say. But yeah, you can put even like the whole pregnancy, you do put a pregnancy plan together, like if you want them. We weren't super strict on things like diet and all that. I mean, she obviously is going to be eating healthy and all that, but you can be more specific. If you can be very specific if you want to be. But we weren't crazy about it. You know, we weren't like super hardcore, like you can't do this, you can't do that. But, you know, just be healthy and take care of our baby.
Yes, which happened. Great.
And that's her job, right? Like is to be healthy and to eat food and make your baby.
Yeah.
So
we were you can only eat organic food, or
oh my God,
we didn't do stuff like that.
It happens. Yeah.
But we were she's such a nice person. We had really, you know, we were really good together. I think it was a good fit, and she was just so sweet. And you know, you worry about, like, before you ever get matched with a surrogate, you worry about, oh, what if they want to keep the baby or something, or you hear stories. And no, it's not like that at all. They know that they're helping you out, and then it's not their baby, and they're helping give life to your baby. And
yes. Oh,
yeah. Contract.
Yeah, there's a contract. No, but yeah, they are helping you give life to your baby, and that's what they choose. Yeah, and that's special, because we're going to be interviewing surrogates, right? Like, that's their choice to want to support a family and care for. Yeah, to see the other side, to see their point of view is really special too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you're holding your baby first. So what was the day? What was that special day? What date was that?
So also because she was born in Vegas, they recommended going out to Vegas a week before the due date. But I was even worried about that. I told my husband, we got to go out 2 weeks before. What if she's born super early? You know, I don't want to miss anything. But he was like, no, 1 week. And so I'm like, fine. So we got there on a Friday, and she was born on a Sunday.
Oh my goodness.
But we stayed at the, I'm like, thank goodness we got there then. But we also, like, just stayed for a long period of time. We didn't know if we were going to be in Vegas for a month or a week, or who knows. We stayed at the Four Seasons, and they were so nice, and they allowed us to be very flexible in the amount of time we were staying there. They knew we could be there for a couple days to a month.
Well, and at that point, nobody was in hotels, so I'm sure they were very flexible.
Yeah, they were flexible, and they were so nice. When we checked in, they brought us champagne and all these gifts for our baby, and they had everyone come out, all the management come out and say hi to us and welcome us, and they were all so nice. Yeah, it was really, really sweet. Such a great place when we were there. So we got there Friday. Saturday we had brunch or lunch, I guess lunch with our surrogate. She came at us at the Four Seasons. She seemed, you know, I didn't think I mean, there was no sign like, oh, you're going to be going into labor tonight.
she
so, you know, we're in Vegas. Didn't feel anything. So that night, you know, we went out to dinner. We're in Vegas. We go to a nice steak dinner. We had some wine, maybe a cocktail. So that Saturday night,
oh my gosh,
as we're going to bed, we get a text from her husband, and he's like, and he said in his text, I think she might be going into labor. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
When you think about, like, the universe, the things coming together, like, you got there on Friday in the middle of a pandemic where really you shouldn't be away from home for that long, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're there for a day, and boom, it's time. Your baby was like, hey, mom's here, I'm ready. Mom and dad are here, I'm ready.
Well,
like, you know,
because when
Valerie said that, she was like, you must have heard you. Hi, mama.
Oh, well, when you're like, I want to get there 2 weeks early. I was like that to my mom. I was like, can you come to LA earlier than a week? She's like, no, a week, fine. But just in case. She's like, no, it's okay. Then the due date, I was like, darn. I hear you. Oh gosh. Okay, so Valerie's husband texts you, and then
It was, I think it was like 12:30 at night. Like we already had come back to our room and, but we were tired.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And not expecting anything anytime soon.
I know, having champagne.
But,
and like,
yeah, so we're like, oh, yeah. Like, okay, I guess we shouldn't have had that bottle of wine.
or wine. Yeah, you had wine. Yeah.
We're exhausted.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had a bottle of wine. So I think we tried to go to sleep a little bit. I couldn't sleep though, because I was like just thinking about it. And I forget what time it was, maybe like 2:30 a.m. He was like, her contractions are getting
Wow.
closer together. And then I forget what time it was, but then he was like, oh, we're going to the hospital. Maybe it was like 4 a.m. or something by the time that then they decided to go to the hospital. And so we pack all our things and we head to the hospital too. They get to the hospital before us. And so they're in the whatever room. And so we get to the hospital. Of course, it's a Sunday in the middle of the night. Not the right people are there at the hospital. The people in charge.
Oh no.
Know about our situation.
Oh, geez.
So we got there, security's out front. And my husband's like, we're having a baby. We got to get in. He looked at me and he was like, doesn't look like it.
Yeah. Rude.
Super rude. And then we had to explain our surrogate situation. So then he had to like contact people inside. And then it has this whole ordeal, like trying to talk. I don't know who he talked to, but he found somebody that kind of knew our situation. So they're like, let him inside to the lobby. Then it was this whole back and forth of getting us into the room, to the actual room. So then eventually I got back there, but then it was a back and forth if my husband could come back there. He was just in the lobby. And then they were like, the head up said, okay, he could come in, but then they were like, no, he can't come in. They can only have just you and not him. So, but also her husband was in there too, because he's her birthing coach.
Yeah.
So,
sure. Of course. Yeah, I get that.
Our surrogate, Valerie, and her husband, and then I was able to come in. But I felt horrible because my husband is stuck in the lobby and his daughter is going to be born.
Yeah.
So that was terrible. But also I was mostly concerned with myself because I'm like, I have to be in there. Like this is, my baby and maybe my only baby. I have to be in there. So I thankfully got in there and she was, I got to see her in labor and it did not look fun. I'm going to do this again. Yeah.
That's keeping her
And then
out,
she got her
sorry.
epidural and I'm like, actually, my husband, they didn't let him in at all. Like, they didn't let him into the birthing room. He did get to come up to the room we got after the birth, but he wasn't allowed into the room. So what we did was we FaceTimed him during the birth.
Yay. Okay, good. So he was kind of there. He was virtually there.
Yeah. We propped him up behind the bed. So he was looking like from behind the bed, not like
to you.
Right.
but from behind the bed. So, so I was like front and center holding Valerie's leg as she pushed. So I guess it's a unique experience and being able to actually see Emerson coming out, like her head come out. So I saw the whole thing, like, I saw her coming out. I thought, I had no idea. I've never seen a birth before. I just thought it was like,
oh, okay.
It's kind of like they go out and out.
Wow.
And I'm like, can she breathe?
She did not need to breathe at that moment. She had everything she needed. So, oh my gosh. Yeah.
So you get worried again. You're like, And then, so she came out and I was just in shock. I think I had this out of body shocking experience, like just shocked. Like, this is my baby. She's here. I just couldn't believe it. It was like the most surreal thing I'd ever seen or experienced. I got to hold her right away. They cleaned her off and then they let me hold her because of our situation. We did formula feeding, but Valerie did pump a little colostrum while in the hospital. So she had a little bit of that in a bottle. But after that, it was all formula. But So, yeah, it was crazy. And then of course we got to show Vince on FaceTime. Here's our baby, and she's beautiful. And she was the cutest thing ever. Like, she was a beautiful newborn. I mean, I think every parent says that, but she really was a very cute newborn. And it was just so surreal. I just felt like this out of body surreal experience, like just crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was the end of a piece of the parent journey, right? It was the beginning of not the beginning of your parental journey, but sort of the beginning of being a parent to a human being, right?
Yeah.
This is no longer
conceptual,
theoretical.
Yeah.
Right.
Shannon
and so
was like,
I can't
"I'm
even
ready to
imagine like
now."
all no, but it's like all of the buildup, right? Like you had so much, you had so much buildup to this moment and so much grief and loss and mourning and then all of a sudden she's here and it's like, I mean, I can understand why it was an out of body experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I wasn't carrying her either. So it's not like she was physically with me the whole time.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was like, now I have a baby. So because I never had fully had her like with me while I was pregnant with her. So I didn't physically have her close to me that whole time. So it just felt like crazy. Suddenly, like I have her here. It was crazy, but we got a room a couple doors down from our surrogate. So then they were finally let my husband come up. He got to be in the room. So both of us were in the room with our baby, and our surrogate was a couple doors down. So she was recovering, and she did great. I mean, it was a very smooth delivery. Thankfully. And I got to go back and see her have her first bath and watch it. It was the cutest thing. And so sweet. I'm taking videos of it. Of course, like I didn't give birth, so I'm like up and physically able to do things. And I went to the hospital has this class for all the new moms that just had a baby. So I go in there and I'm just like not physically distressed while everybody else is. And they're like, oh, who is this person? Did you just have a baby?
Right. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine, Brandy, being like, did you just have a baby? Wow.
Well,
how did you like? I would be
I
like,
can't even
what?
imagine being in class after having a baby. What do you? Sorry, I can't even imagine.
They probably thought that. I mean, they didn't know that I didn't deliver.
Right. So it's like, wow, there was this. Right. You're the person. You're the person in the story. Like, man, this one, she recovered so fast. What? I wonder what she did. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Everyone else is like,
Wait, so side note, were they just in the wheelchairs, just sitting? These moms that just gave birth? I just can't even imagine being in a
yeah. It was just
be in the bed, like I'm just in the bed, like don't touch me, I don't want to listen to nothing. But okay, so then you're in this class, and then because it was like what, a couple days, like a day after, 2 days, Was Valerie there?
It was the same day.
Oh no, Valerie wasn't there because she's not.
No, she didn't have to go in there.
Yeah, but okay, so you're in there.
Yeah, I think the class was the same day, I think, or the day after.
Okay.
Well, maybe the same day because we left the next day. We were only, we were in the hospital one night after she was born, and then we got to leave. So.
That's actually, there's a thing that says here, one of the questions is like, any unique, funny, unusual, weird things that happened during the delivery process. I think maybe you being in that room with the mom. Hi. Well, just to say, just a short note on it. Like, how was that then? What did you learn, or what did you get from that? Or did you, you were in that class? What was that like?
In a little class?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't even remember. I think they just basically trying to make sure that you need to take care of this baby. Don't just leave the hospital. And I would say it wasn't the best hospital. The hospital that would allow us.
But that's interesting because that's what we have experienced. Like, wait, you just want me to take this human being home? Like, that's how sometimes comes in our head. Like, no one taught me anything. We're not.
I think they feed your child. Change their diaper, like very basic things.
You're getting out of the hospital. The nurses aren't helping you. But this is why we do delivery diaries, and so at least we can be somewhat prepared or like have some kind of information or know if we can look up information and see and hear from the horse's mouth, not just read it from a book, which can be overwhelming. But they can click on Shannon, story and get something from it. Who knows? And be empowered. Because I'm actually empowered, and I'm not doing a surrogate or having pregnant. But I mean, I feel empowered for other. Actually, okay. Here's what I feel, because I know you personally. You're like one of the strongest women I've ever met. Shannon, I'm talking.
Oh my
to you.
gosh!
Like to know this,
know
this part of your journey. It takes a lot, like you said, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. Because I came into this knowing this much of your story, but to know like this whole the whole piece, the whole banner of it all, it's really inspiring. And the love that you and Vince have, I even thought of like, wow, to have Vince. I mean, I know married couples are married couples, but to have your partner just stick with you going through that grief and the pain and the joy, then,
I think it was probably hard for him. Well, obviously hard for him too, also just to see me go through all of that.
Yeah.
So he has 2 boys. They're now 18 and 16. But for him, he had 2 kids already. So it wasn't, it's life crisis sort of thing, like having a baby. I had never had one yet.
Right.
So it was really more hard for him on seeing me go through all of that. He wanted, of course, badly with me too, but the hardest part for him was just to watch me have to.
And I think that's true for a lot of partners in this situation is watching your partner go through something painful.
Yeah.
Right. So
in the future,
but he was good. He was by my side, and
I was gonna say, sorry to interrupt. Like in the future, we're having delivery dads. I'll put him on the list if he doesn't want to die. I have to twist his arm. Yeah.
Okay, so you have this newborn.
Yes. Finally, Vince got to be in there and then hold his daughter, because he has 2 sons. So it was his first daughter. So that was very special to see him with her. And then all of us together, finally, after all of that. So it was crazy. It was very sweet to like finally have, the 3 of us together in the room. And because even then it took a little time then where he could finally come up in there. So he finally made it up, and he got to stay there all night too. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you said you left the next day.
Yeah. So the next day we went back to the Four Seasons, and I think we checked out by lunchtime, because then we met Vince's mom, because she lives in Vegas. We met his mom and his mom's boyfriend at the Four Seasons, and they got to meet Emerson, just fresh newborn after a day. So that was really sweet that she got to meet her. Then we decided to stay the night at the Four Seasons in one more night rather than drive all the way back.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So we stayed one night, and of course the Four Seasons, the staff were so excited, and so everyone came out to see the baby.
And again, like, okay, just to taking a step back and objectively looking at, so height of the pandemic, you're at the Four Seasons, they got nothing else going on.
Yeah.
Staff, right? Like barely anyway. Like, they were cleaning rooms and doing all this stuff. So like I'm just thinking about like all of those people. This is one of their pandemic stories. We had this couple, they had a surrogate, there was this newborn. It was crazy. Like I just that's you have probably, this story alone has probably provided so much party talk or like get together talk for people. Like, and again, not that that's the purpose of it, but there's a lot of joy in the story that you're telling, which is after everything that you went through. Oh my God. Like what like sort of an amazing moment in this giant story is like, you're sitting there in the Four Seasons with a baby who's a day old.
Yeah.
Right.
No one brings a baby to a hotel after a day.
Yeah. Like my doctor was like, stay home for 30 days. Don't go anywhere. I'm like,
well, hospital one night. Four Seasons was like her first home.
I know. Oh, Emerson.
They were.
Did they have a bassinet for you or a crib? How did that work out in the room?
No, we brought our own with us because we drove instead of flying, so that because we had so much staff.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I didn't know how the drive home would be. I was a little nervous about the drive home.
Sure.
It's kind of a bit of a drive, but she slept almost the entire time. I think she only woke up like once or twice to eat, and then she went back to sleep. So literally, she was sleeping.
The humming. Yeah, that's
right.
True.
It was probably a lot like, and she barely knew that she was out.
Yeah.
Right.
And we weren't asleep so much, so you don't realize that. And she slept, almost the entire time.
Well, that's how we try to get babies to fall asleep, is put them in the car back in the days and just have them sleep. So that was probably natural. Did you see Valerie before you left the hospital, before you went to the Four Seasons? Or how was that goodbye like?
Yeah. We did. She came in. Yeah, she came into our room. I can remember if we probably came out to see her, and then she came over to our room, and then we were all released from the hospital together. So we took pictures together with Emerson, all 5 of us, before leaving the hospital. So we talked, basically walked out with them. Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah,
can't wait to
see.
Do
you guys
those
stay
photos.
in touch now?
Yeah, we do. She came to Emerson's first birthday party. Yeah, that was very sweet. But we keep in touch, not like constantly, but
sure,
in touch, and we're connected on Instagram. And we actually did try again because we had one more embryo a year later, but it didn't work. So it was kind of like, we are either gonna have just one or 2. I mean, if the second one didn't work, it was a second girl. Then that's it. We're just having Emerson. That was just, I can't go through all of that again. And even my doctor was like, I don't recommend you going through a bunch of IVFs again. And, so I'm just like so thankful and grateful and blessed that I have Emerson. And actually not knowing, because I didn't know ahead of time, I didn't know before I had Emerson. And now that I have Emerson, I'm so fulfilled as a mom with just her that it wasn't as big of it was heartbreaking that it didn't work, but it wasn't as big of a hit to me because I had Emerson.
Sure.
Because she fulfills me 100% as a mom.
Oh.
And I didn't know I would feel that way because I thought, like, I have to have at least 2. I didn't know how I would feel once I became a mom, and now that I have her, she fulfills me so much as a mom. And she's the best little girl ever. Like, I can't, I'm just so amazed by her. She's the most funny, social little girl. She loves everyone and everything. She's so full of joy. It's I got the best one possible. If I were to have just one, she's the best kid.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome to hear.
Did you start thinking, oh my gosh, she has 2 older brothers? Did that come in?
I didn't, a little bit, but not fully because they're so much older than her.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Because she doesn't have that, playmate. Sort of like when I was little, my brother was only 2 years older than me, so we played together all the time. But she has these 2 big brothers that will always be in her life, and I'm sure they will be close, even closer as they get older.
Yeah.
That's
how it usually
when
happens.
she was a little baby, there wasn't much they could do with her, but now she's a little bigger, so they can play with her more now. But she does not like to play independently when we're home. It's always mommy come. She always wants me to play with her. I'm like, you need to play with her.
Yes. So it's hard. It's hard when to get on the ground at 43 or whatever. It's hard.
Yeah, I'm 42,
so yeah, no, it's not as easy to get on. That's why we got to work out and do all the healthy stuff.
It's not. Shannon and I are at the gym.
Yeah, when you're an older mom, it's not as easy to get up and down off the ground when you're.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Why are my knees cracking? Okay.
I pulled my upper back muscle picking up Like,
oh my gosh.
I know. Oh, well, that's part of
Yeah.
the next segue. Perfect segue. Not that you're back, but postpartum, if you will, right? We like to say like post after, pregnancy after birth. Like, how is that experience? I mean, obviously she's 3, but like, how was it settling in or just to a place of like content or just, yeah.
It was good. It was definitely more hard, more work than I expected, having a baby because it's 24/7, but we did have some help with a night nurse. Because I actually don't do well on little sleep. So we specifically got one so that we could actually sleep at night and then be available for her in the morning. And that was amazing to have that. So that worked out really well. And so I didn't have any, I was just so happy to have her. I don't think I had any issues. I mean, the only hardest thing was when she had a little bit of a milk protein allergy when she was little. So we went through a lot of formula. I think we tried like 9 different formulas and eventually we got to see a gastroenterologist because the pediatrician wasn't helpful. And the pediatrician she was filling in for our pediatrician that was on maternity leave, told us that goat milk was not okay, goat milk formula. And our night nurse said, you put her on goat milk formula because this baby is suffering. And she was suffering. And so then I gave up. I'm like, we're seeing a gastroenterologist. And then the gastroenterologist was like,
put her on goat milk.
Yeah. And it was one day on goat milk formula and it was like a baby.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's insane that somebody would say that. Goat milk is the closest to human milk from an enzymatic, from like the enzymes in goat milk is the closest to human of like any animal that we use in the dairy industry. It's insane. That's insane that somebody would tell you not to do that. That's like, that's any kid that's got milk allergy. That's the first thing you do is you put them on goat milk and goat cheese.
They have that all over the world.
And I was so mad at them for them taking so long to tell us not to do that. And then it was just so frustrating and finally figured it out. And
it's bananas. People are bananas. I mean, like
I told you, Flo knows
I can
things.
go into like the history of goat milk. Like, that's what you do. Well, no, but you think about like babies in the past, right? When their moms died or whatever, there were wet nurses and this, that, or the other thing. But if there was livestock and there were goats, it's the goat milk that the kids got because it was the best thing for them. Like, it's insane. Oh my God. That makes me really angry.
Yeah.
Like in general.
When so angry at
how
the
old
time.
How old was Emerson?
I'm still angry at the pediatrician.
Yeah.
How
old was Emerson? How old was she at that?
So she was on the regular. She didn't start having an issue till about 6 weeks old.
Oh,
so
that's
about 6 weeks old, she started having.
That's it. I mean, that's
And then she had it for it was several weeks. Just
okay.
She eventually just didn't want to eat. Like she wouldn't drink the bottle. Like she didn't want it. She'd push it away because she was in so much pain, and it was just the saddest thing ever. I'm like, my baby's not eating. And several weeks after 6, so she was 6 weeks were fine, and then the allergy showed up, and she was just miserable for a few weeks.
Good thing you had
the first 6 weeks. What does she have? Right? Like, what do you have for that first 6 weeks, Brandy? You have your mother's immunity, or you have, in this case, she had Valerie's immunity.
Oh.
And so the point at which her gut biome and her own immunity starts to overtake is the moment that her allergy showed up.
I was wondering why it didn't show up 6 weeks later.
It's that first 6 weeks is the infant's full of the mother's antibodies and things. So any allergies or whatever really do come from. I mean, it's not 100%, but that's basically what it is. It's unbelievable that I'm so mad for her.
Yeah,
but you figured it out, and now is she still? I mean,
they just say that she'd probably. I mean, it's not likely that she would be lactose intolerant, but you never know. But she was totally fine. I mean, she was on goat milk then up until she was 1, and then we stopped goat milk formula at 1 year of age, and then she just now drinks regular cow milk, no problem.
Oh, that's great.
No issues. Great. So,
yep.
She is a strong, vibrant, happy little girl. Like, really.
That's so awesome.
She's she's very happy. She's very sporty, and she loves to run. She's so fun.
When we were at an event at our gym, and there was a speaker, but she just like hop around to the next person sitting on the floor. It was just like such a delight.
Yeah. And she climbed up onto the podium.
Right. Yes,
time?
exactly. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. But we're all a lot of parents and kids. We're just like, hi. Not much you can do.
She helped herself to the podium. Had something to say.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
Good for her. Yeah. Embrace the confidence. So that's awesome. That's so awesome.
Is there
what
Yeah, no, I was going to say we're going to wrap it up. Is there anything you want to share specifically to our listeners or viewers, or something in your story that you want to let people know, or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I could have done differently through the whole thing, because I didn't have the knowledge that I had. Always get a second opinion if your doctor doesn't seem to know what's wrong, or just getting a second opinion in general. Like maybe one doctor thinks one thing and the other finds the right thing. Testing early, I don't know. Do your testing early, even though you don't want to do some of those things before you really need to, but you might save yourself some time and money.
Sure.
The surrogacy process, it's an experience, and it was a smooth one for us, thankfully. I mean, you never know. Like, it depends on who you end up having as a surrogate, but we had someone who was really great, who made it a lot easier for us. So if you're matched with something that's really great, then it's such a smooth process.
That's awesome.
That's great to hear.
This has been so interesting and educational, and I'm going to go find out what MAG protein is.
Let me know.
No, I'm probably gonna do some stuff and I'll find it, and so we can.
Why
post
is nobody talking about it? No one has any information on it. I don't know.
And again, you're talking about it went to Yale, so it went to a premier university research center, right? So it may be something that it may be emerging science. Right. It may be like, oh, we don't know anything. We don't know why you wouldn't be able to get pregnant. And now, like, whoever's working on it is like, they're deeper into it. So it's
we'll definitely highlight
we
that.
We learned so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that's happening. It's like, the thing is like, instead of women having, send me money on my college graduation, chip into my frozen eggs account, like that's
freeze my eggs.
Freeze my eggs, like that's because now women we are getting more knowledgeable
about some people that freeze their eggs might not know that you probably want to do multiple rounds, because one round of retrieval you might have I have 10 eggs, but there might only be one that's normal and
1 or 2
out of 10. So if somebody's really seriously wanting to freeze their eggs, they probably should do multiple rounds to freeze.
That's awesome.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
Oh, Shannon, thank you so much for sharing your delivery diary. It was just amazing to know more.
My pleasure. And it was so nice talking to you both.
All right. Thanks, Shannon.